Hello, fight fans. We are on the eve of UFC 239, Thiago Santos versus Jon Jones. And this main card is on fire. A lot of people say that, you look at the main event and the co-main event, and they think that, well, those may not be the most competitive, especially when you look to the odds makers. But there are so many gems on this card, and the top 5 is what you're paying for. And I think it's one of the better cards of the year in the ESPN era. Let's start out with Thiago the Nightmare Sanchez and Michael Chiesa. Michael Chiesa comes in a huge favorite into this fight, minus 330. Thiago Sanchez, you can catch him. It's looked like it's been around 250, 260, which means you can turn $100 into 250 or so. Did you guys see that stare down? If you haven't seen that stare down, it's incredible. Thiago Sanchez will just not stop staring. He actually followed Michael Chiesa to a restaurant afterwards and stared at him throughout the whole meal, and then stared him down all the way into his hotel room. Very intense. But no, all kidding aside, Thiago Sanchez, this guy, he's been around forever. To put odds on him like that, is on a 2-fight win streak, but it's against Craig White and Mickey Gall, guys that, they're not top-notch in my mind. He does have a ton of miles on him. Let's look at Michael Chiesa, though, minus 330 favorite. This is a guy that has 11 submission victories. Never knocked anyone out, though. He does not have a knockout in his career. Sanchez, in all of his fights, I think 29 fights, he's finished over half of those, 6 submissions, like 13 knockouts, I believe. And most people think that Michael Chiesa's path to success is by submission. Well, surprise, Thiago Sanchez has never been submitted in his life. And he has faced the who's who in, over 40 fights in his MMA career, dating back to, of course, Ultimate Fighter 1, the only remaining fighter from Tough 1. And this guy, he hasn't lost intensity from day one, it seems like. This is a very hard one to put my money on. I would not risk minus 330 on Chiesa. If you're somebody that likes to take a lot of chances, a little more than me at minus 250 to over double your money, Thiago Sanchez might not be the worst underdog pick in the world, but this is a really hard one for me. If I'm going to choose a winner on this, though, I actually am going to pick the upset. And I'm going to say Thiago Sanchez wins this in a firefight because Chiesa cannot submit him. He gets him into his kind of a battle. They go back and forth, and I see Thiago Sanchez pulling off a huge upset and winning a majority or a unanimous decision. That is to start off the main card. Let's go into the next bout. You got Jan Blachowicz welcoming Luke Rockhold to the light heavyweight division. Jan Blachowicz is a guy that he has been very active lately. He fought 3 times, I believe, in 2018, a couple times in 2017. Luke, not so much. Fought 1 time each of the last 3 years. He's lost 2 of his last 3, 1 by knockout. Before that, he was on fire. He was on a 5-fight win streak. He knocked out Michael Bisping. He beat Chris Weidman. He beat some of the very top guys in the 185-pound division. And then it seemed like he really had a hard time making that light heavyweight cut. Jan came into this about a minus 130 underdog. That has moved to, the last I seen was minus 188. Luke, I think, started at about a plus 170 favorite. That is more like a plus 230 now. I don't think that this is a good matchup for Jan Blachowicz, though. Rockhold, when he has had problems in the past, whether it be for the weight cut, whether you think maybe his chin's not what it used to be, Blachowicz is not going to knock him out. Blachowicz doesn't knock people out. He doesn't knock anybody out. So this is a good matchup for Luke Rockhold. I'm not surprised to see the odds move on this. And I see Luke winning this one fairly easily. And if you can get around 2-1, I say take it. I think this is a great matchup for him. The only thing that worries me, like I said, is, the inactivity, only having 3 fights in 3 years. But I think we see a new and resurged Luke Rockhold. And I think most likely he ends up knocking Blachowicz out. He's finished every single one of his UFC wins except for 2. And that moves us into the feature bout of the evening, and maybe the funnest fight in this card, and the one I'm looking forward to the most by far. If Tony Ferguson and Donald Cerrone was the people's main event on the last card, Ben Askren versus Jorge Masvidal may be the people's main event on this card. Let's talk about Ben first. Undefeated Bellator champion, undefeated ONE FC champion, and we've seen now that you've had some UFC guys go over there, and a lot of them, get their brains bashed in, that ONE FC, they bring the heat. Ask Sage Northcutt, ask Eddie Alvarez, and Demetrius Johnson, even though he won, it was probably one of the tougher fights he's had in a while outside of Henry Cejudo. So Askren, I mean, he has that MMA wrestling. He did some brilliant things there against Robbie Lawler, but he also got pieced up really bad. He showed just how horrible his striking defense is, and he's going in against a guy that is extremely balanced. Jorge Masvidal, you think about him like a street fighter because he started out as a street fighter. This guy was doing videos like at the time of Kimbo Slice. That's how he made his way. This guy is no joke, though. This guy, he just went to a draw in the Submission Underground with Anthony Pettis, who's a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He submitted Michael Chiesa. People forget about that. Chiesa's a stud. Chiesa's known as the submission guy. Masvidal submitted him. And now Masvidal, to train for this, I see in video, he's been training with Yoel Romero. If he can stop Yoel Romero's takedowns, Ben Askren, the funky one, I mean, it's a much different look, but that's definitely going to help him out in this. In a 3-round fight, it's a little harder for Jorge. If this was a 5-round fight, I'm taking Masvidal, no problem. I'm laying my money down. Because let's look at the odds on this one. Masvidal, still about a minus 175 underdog. Ben like a plus 225 favorite, so you can almost double your money. On Masvidal, I don't know that I would put money on this one, but I still feel fairly safe in Masvidal. I think within 15 minutes, I just don't think Ben is going to finish him. Ben's not a finisher. Ben is not a finisher. Despite that bulldog choke, over his career, Ben has not been a finisher. That's one of the reasons Bellator wasn't real upset about letting him go, is because he was beating everybody in, just not an entertaining fashion. As much as I like the guy outside of the cage, everything he says, I love his Twitter. I loved his first fight, as short as it was, with Robbie Lawler, but I need to see more from him before I favor him against a guy like Jorge Masvidal, and for that reason, I'm taking the underdog. Another underdog in this one, I'm taking Masvidal. Now let's move into the co-main event of the evening. Amanda Nunes versus Holm. These odds have stayed largely where they opened at. Amanda opened at a plus 400 favorite. You can get minus 300. You can get about 3-1 on Holly. How much of a shot does Holly have? Let's go back to her last fight with the Chris Cyborg fight. And a lot of people said recently that that's just the way that fight was going to go. Somebody was going to get knocked out very quickly. And Amanda's just the one that got off first. Remember, Holm is a boxer. She showed great underhooks and defense. And I thought she showed a lot of different things in her fight with Chris Cyborg, which has been a couple years now. Unfortunately for her, it was not competitive. People talk about her submission loss to Miesha Tate, which I believe Amanda Nunes brought up. Holly says, look, that was in 2016. That's a fight she has really said she wants back. It really bothers her that she got submitted at the end of that fight against Miesha. But she was just halfway into her MMA career coming out of boxing. And that's what she talked about recently on I believe it was UFC Uncensored with Matt Serra and Jim Norton. It was a good, honest interview, I thought, from her, and gives you a good idea of where she is, both mentally and physically. Now, something I would hold against Amanda is she had a very long boxing career. And she is also 37 years old. That is not young for a lighter fighter. Amanda seems to be on top of the world. Unless she really comes in and underestimates Holly, I really think she's going to be okay. I'm not saying Holly can't last the distance or close to it. Holly's lasted the distance with Chris Cyborg, with Valentina Shevchenko. She's a tough girl. Now, surviving and winning are two different things, though, and she just really has not had competitive bouts in the new cream of the crop. Ronda and Miesha, that was like first generation. Now we're in that like second generation, maybe even getting into that third generation, close to it, of that female fighter. And I just don't think Holly is quite there, and the age is not going to be in her favor. I take Amanda Nunes by unanimous decision. I think Holly survives, but I think Amanda dominates. And that takes us to the main event of the evening. And for those that are looking to bet on an underdog, if you're looking for numbers that jump out at you, Jon Jones, I would not put my money on him, even though I think, he should be a huge favorite. He's like a plus 715. Now, these lines have moved quite a bit. Thiago opened up, I believe, right around 4-1, like minus 400. Might have even been like minus 360. You might have been able to get at one time. Or people might have been able to get. And Jon Jones, you could have gotten him as low as the plus 500s. Now he's in the 7s. Thiago Santos, as of this morning on DraftKings, was a flat minus 500. So 5-1 odds. For what it's worth, Jon Jones said if anybody's going to beat him, if anybody is going to end that undefeated streak, it's going to be somebody that lands a bomb, somebody that lands a big shot. And Thiago Santos is the guy to do that. Now, Jon Jones has fought every single kind of fighter. He's the best fighter, I believe, in the history of the UFC at using his reach. And he's going to have an 8-inch reach on Saturday. Thiago Santos carries a lot of muscle in that cage. And in a 5-round fight, I see him wearing down. I see Jon wearing him down. I see Santos getting very tired. And I think Jon probably ends up stopping him somewhere around the 3rd or 4th round. So I'm going to say Jon Jones by finish. I don't know if it will be a knockout or a submission, because Jon just kind of takes what you give him. Jon doesn't go in with any set plan per se of how he's going to finish a fight. He definitely does his homework. The guy's a human computer. No matter what you think about, his picograms and issues with USADA and, whatever. The guy is a human computer, and he's a fighting genius. And I just don't see Thiago Santos taking this one. I say Jon Jones gets it. But I want to know what you guys think. Make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you're notified whenever I post a new video or go live, like tomorrow, for Fight Companion UFC 239. I will be live at 5 for the prelims, which are also pretty amazing. Check them out. They'll be over on ESPN Plus. Then we move over to the pay-per-view portion of the card. But give me your thoughts down below, what you think of my picks. If you have any bets out there, I'm curious to know if you guys picked up on anything maybe I missed. Let me know. As always, I love you. I respect you. And I'll see your fine asses later.